Hello, brethren and guests, and welcome to the District 8 Freemasons of Washington Roundtable discussion, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. It is important to note that our thoughts and opinions are our own and do not reflect those of the Grand Lodge of Washington, our respective craft, or any concordant bodies. Welcome back, brothers, and here we are again with the District 8 Roundtable. Tonight's discussion is going to be on the point within a circle. Our very special guest tonight is very worshipful brother Jim Hamlin, who will be providing the presentation. We will have discussion afterwards. Please remember that this will be recorded. Very worshipful brother Jim.
Good evening, brethren. So I'll start sharing the screen, and the talk tonight will be on the circumpunct, or point within a circle. There's a delay on the PowerPoint. As we all know, Masonry has a lot of symbols, and some are specific to Freemasonry, but others have some part, they have a universality to them. And in my way of thinking, being speculative Masons, we should speculate on some of these symbols. And that's what a good part of tonight's going to be, is my speculation on the symbol of a point within a square, circle. Going back, the sun cross, or wheel cross, or solar cross, as this is called, this symbol goes back to Neolithic times. Very ancient symbol was used. In ancient Egypt, we had a point within a circle representing the sun, and Ra, the sun god. Another Egyptian symbol is the Akhet, which I take this as a circle, and then two symbolic lions on either side of the circle. This represents the seasons. And remember that, because we get back to it a little later. The Aztec god symbol, again, a point within a circle. The Aztec calendar, circle with a point in the center. This is a Hindu symbol, and it has a triangle in the center. And in Claudi's Short Talk Bulletin, he talks about a triangle being in a circle. For Buddhists, we have the Buddhist wheel. And they talk that the rim of the wheel represents limitation. Sound familiar? The hub symbolizes the axis of the world. In China, we have the Taoism. And this is maybe just my imagination, but I see two circles with tails on them here, with 2 points. Shinto in Japan, a similar symbol. In alchemy, we have the representation for gold, the symbol for gold. And the symbol for the sun is like the Egyptian, a point within a circle. if you take a point within a circle and add circles to it, we start building the flower of life. And worship brother Andre has done a couple excellent presentations on sacred geometry where he goes into this in great detail and has much more knowledge on the subject than I. Now, the ancients didn't know this, that the hydrogen atom is a point within a circle. Now, I know that the electron doesn't go in an orbit around the nucleus. It's more of a shell. But here we have the basic building block of matter. And we see a point within a circle. To the ancients, this symbol had a religious significance. To the Aztecs, to the Egyptians, to the Shinto, to the Hindu, the Pythagoreans called the first thing that came into existence the monad. And from that, they came to the dyad and on through numbers and so on. But it signified divinity. So why do Masons revere this symbol? In our first degree lecture, we hear that every regular and well-governed lodge should have a point within a circle with two parallel lines. And there's only a couple symbols that I can think of that we are told should be or shall be in the lodge. And this is one of them. Why? All geometry starts from a point. Euclid said, a point is that which is without parts. It has no dimension. It has no area. It can't be measured. But because it is something, it's non-zero. And Euclid demonstrated that the use of the point within a circle can be used to create an equilateral triangle. By overlapping the circles, we come up with an equilateral triangle. So here, the point within a circle is not the start of geometry, but it starts to make geometry useful to the operative Mason. It can be used for an even more important, as a more important tool for operative Masons to try a square. If you take a point within a circle, bisect it, and put any point around the circumference, connect the points, and you will always come up with a 90-degree angle. So with our operative masons, if they're out there with a wood square and they drop it off the top of the pyramid and they want to make sure it's still a square, they can draw this point within a circle, put a point on the circumference, match or connect the points, and compare that with the tool that was dropped. Now, speculative masons, I think, are the ones that added the parallel lines, volume of sacred law, and the Holy Saints John. Now, I heard a discussion on a YouTube video about the parallel lines and the Holy Saints John. And what was brought up was that the true patron saint, or the appropriate patron saint for builders, would have been St. Thomas, I believe. He was the patron saint of architects or builders. But for some reason, speculative masons chose St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist. And that, I wonder why. St. John the Baptist was very passionate and expressed his passion. St. John the Evangelist was the intellectual. So we have opposites, if you will. And then the days we separate their birthday, which are at the summer and winter equinox. Go back to that Egyptian symbol with the two symbolic lions holding the circle. They also represented the seasons. So did our use of the two saints, John, perhaps come from the Egyptian? I don't know. Now, if you think I'm have been crazy up till now I'll really get off the wall. This is a sketch done by Leonardo da Vinci called Vitruvian Man. And it's based on the writings of Vitruvius, which was a Roman architect and general, lived about 80 BC. And he described the correct proportions of a man. And he said, a man standing upright with his arms outstretched from fingertip to fingertip should equal the distance from the top of his head to the ground. That makes a square. Vitruvius also said if a man spreads his feet so his head is lowered 1/14 of his height, his legs will form an equilateral triangle. And then if his arms are outstretched and raised so his fingertips are at the same level as his head, a circle could be drawn with the center point being at the navel. For the square, the center point of the square is at the groin. Now, I'll go on. The navel. Well, let me back up. I'm sorry. A few months ago, I talked in Lodge about the square and compasses and how we're taught that the movement through the degrees of the square and compasses are to teach us that Masonry is a progressive science. We're never overtly told where we're progressing from and going to. But if you think about where what's prominent at the EA degree, and then the combination at the fellowcraft, and then the compasses being dominant at for the Master Mason degree. I believe that the compasses or the square are earthly. A square is only of use on the ground. A square cannot be used to describe the heavens. Whereas the compasses can be used to show the movement of the stars and the planets. So we're progressing from the earthly to the spiritual, if you will. Now the navel comes from a few Greek words, which translate into viewing or examination or speculation. The navel has been used as an aid to contemplation, not only by in yoga, the Hindu, but also some Eastern Orthodox churches have used it. And it was described in 1930 that some monks of the Eastern Orthodox Church, they experienced celestial joy when gazing on their umbilical region in converse with deity. Now, our current use of the word navel, I think, means you're wasting your time if you're contemplating your navel. But originally, it had a significant meaning, and to those who practice yoga and meditation, still can. Getting back to the symbol, the mandala is a point within a circle, and mandalas are used as aid to meditation. We also have the tree of life that shows many points within a circle. This comes from the Kabbalah, and I am very unfamiliar with the Kabbalah. But to many, it has significance. And it's called the Tree of Life. In this, there are 6 chakras. In the Hindu, there were 7 on the central that correlated with the spine. Some people have gone really far and combined the Hindu chakras, the Tree of Life, the Vitruvian Man, and if you look close, you can see the flower of life behind this. So they're really combining symbols. Now, can anybody think, I'll make this a rhetorical question. The symbol is used more often than we may think. You look at the seals for this country, a logo for Hitachi, Target, Mercedes, BMW. One similar to this tree with almost looks like a person as the tree trunk is being used in our by Washington Masonic Charities, Cadillac. So there's something about this symbol that of a point within a circle that appeals to our subconscious or something. I don't know what it is. I do know that we have in every lodge a point within a circle. We're taught that the point can be the individual Mason, the circle, the due bounds within which we should stay. Could also be the lodge, with the point being the volume of sacred law or the altar, the circle, the circumambulation of the degrees. Some have said that the parallel lines represent the sidelines, the brethren on the sidelines. I think it's more the marching lines of the deacons in the opening of our lodge. So that was some of my thoughts on a point within a circle. This is the first time I've tried to give this, so I apologize for any fumbling. And I have stopped sharing my screen. Perhaps, very worshipful, we could open this up for discussion.
Absolutely. It's, it's amazing to me, no matter how many times I see this type of presentation. I've seen Andre give it several times. I've seen other people give it. You always learn something different whenever you see these. And I appreciate that, Jim. That was a great presentation. So questions, comments? It's always hard to get the first one. Go ahead, Jim. Jim Rankin. Let me unmute you here. There you go.
Probably echoing pretty much everyone. I found this a very interesting presentation. It covered a lot of area, and I think it answered a lot of questions for me. And when we're talking about mentoring and coaching candidates, he gave me some information I can use toward enlightening our candidates and enlightening those individuals going through the degree. So, Jim, I thought it was a good presentation, and it touched many bases, which helped me understand a lot more about the point within the circle.
Thank you, Jim.
I also think it's a very perfect example of how we can mentor new Masons, and we can tell them about the symbolism, but yet they still need to make their decision, their mind on what it means to them. And again, that's a perfect example of that. You can tell them what it means, but then they have to figure out what it means to them.
And with all our symbols, there are not all, most of our symbols have meanings within meanings. And I think it's our duty to seek out the origins of the symbols. And I realize there is almost nothing in our ritual or our lectures that's wasted or just thrown in there for filler. It all has meaning, and it's up to us to search out that meaning.
Michael?
Oh,
We keep fighting over unmuting you.
yeah, there we go. First off, thank you, Brother Jim, for having this this presentation, because it's something that I always wanted to learn more about. Several years before I became a Mason, when I was in Denver, Colorado, and I met some Prince Hall Freemasons, he actually, because I started talking to them about it, I noticed that a few of them were wearing rings. And so we got to know each other. And at one point, he actually came and he drew down a circle and then put a point within the circle. And he says, you always want to be inside here. You don't ever want to find yourself outside of the circle. And so I took that to heart. And coming from a spiritual sense, I looked at it more of as an inward thing. And I see myself and then the aura around myself. And then if I get outside of myself, that's how I interpreted I don't want to be outside of that circle. I don't have a lot to say about this because I'm interested in hearing what everyone else has to say, but I just wanted to bring that part up. Thank you.
Go ahead, Andre.
Like Michael just said, really the impact of the point within the circle for Masons, I feel, is that it sets our boundary. It sets the scope within which we are going to stay. And that is set by each individual of us who learn our moral principles and decide we're going to stay within these bounds as a good man to reflect what a good man is and stay within that boundary. And when you exceed that boundary, you know you've gone beyond what you should do and you bring yourself back. And I think that's the importance of remembering the point within the circle is we're in the center of the circle. We decide how far outside our boundary we're going to go on each individual interaction we have with humankind and our fellow man. That boundary is our real goal, is to stay within that boundary.
Well said. Michael, did you raise your hand again, or?
I did, and that's exactly right. Because the way I see it, the circle itself can expand. So we don't ever have. I mean, we can expand our circle, but to go outside of it, I think that's where the trouble comes in. That's where the stress starts happening. We start losing ourselves.
Well, good call, Michael.
Go ahead, Ed.
What I was going to say, just to expand on what Michael said, I mean, it's the circle it can be, is, you know, it will get bigger. It will be smaller. It'll be just bigger and smaller for many of us. Because to me, I kind of look at it as kind of an experiential thing, right? I've got my circle where I'm at work, where I have my expertise that I work within there. And then I have the circle with it's spiritually, and with the many other things that we do in our life. I think you take all of the lessons that we learn in masonry, you know, when it comes to mathematics, science, all of those things that we learn sets how big that circle is going to be for each individual. So
And when we're
kind of a guide, if you will.
and when we're in meetings like this, we can see Very Worshipful Brothers Larry's circle expanding and contracting as he zooms in and out to the. So yeah. Andre, did you have something else?
Yeah, one other thing is, remember that when we look at the Masonic version of the point within the circle, as Jim pointed out, above the circle is the Holy Scripture, the volume of sacred law, which helps define those boundaries of that circle, as well as St. John's on either side, which give us the passion, as Jim pointed out, and the intelligence to know where to put the boundaries of that circle. How far should we go? What is the limits on what we want to portray to our fellow?
You just muted yourself, Andre.
Did I? Sorry.
Yeah, you did. You know, and
Technically challenged.
and one of the things I love about these conversations, when we have these type of conversations, is how you can start to tie them all together. In my mind, I start thinking about, you know, you're keeping yourself within due bounds, and I started thinking about Andre's presentation on, you know, ethics versus morals, and that's again keeping within that circle. You start talking about the civil dialogue, civility, and that's within the circle. You know, you can tie it all together. I can anyway, and I'm weird, so. Go ahead, Michael.
I kind of just had a revelation to myself because I'm horrible at geometry. You know, I didn't get past algebra 2 in high school. And so, I mean, I'm feeling like if we in our daily walk, if we could imagine this circle around us, and if we want to expand our circle, it comes with those challenges. And just like you said, on the top of a Masonic circle is the volume of sacred law. For me, I'm just imagining if we're seeking to become better men, sometimes something may come into that circle to give us an opportunity to expand on the circle. And so I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna try this out. Once again, it goes back to aura. I'm starting to feel this aura, which is my circle around me, and yeah, I think I hope I said that correctly. I'm feeling something, and it feels good. I feel like I just had a revelation. I'm getting something out of this. So
Excellent, Andre.
Yeah, so I'm going to add to that, Michael. The volume of sacred law, in my opinion, allows us to apply virtue to our circle. We can say, all right, we're going to focus on honesty today. And we can expand our circle to include the things that are honest, the things that are not honest. Okay. But as we begin to progress and become comfortable with honesty, we can start to experience justice. Where does justice come in? How does that expand our circle? Do we allow different things in light of that? Do we expand that virtue to include other things? And that's how we apply these things to become better men. We start to apply all the different aspects of the virtue to expand our circle to become more all-inclusive of all the virtues that we have learned. And that's all I have to say about that.
And this is probably longer than I've ever heard Most worshipful brother Sam, be quiet. Oh, there's his hand. I knew it had to be coming. Go ahead, Sam. Let's see. Hold on. Let me unmute you. No, it's not letting me. You'll have to unmute yourself. There you go. Nope. There you go.
Very, very good presentation, Jim. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the part where, you brought in some of the history and some of the other, aspects of the global community and how they view the circle. I also find it very interesting in that in Masonry, you have two saints, and you ask the question, why those two? And perhaps I have an answer, and it really doesn't have to do a lot with architecture. But the two Saints John, their personalities were such, and you mentioned this in your presentation, that one of them was really a powerful motivator, a speaker, a very enthusiastic. And I do believe that he represents, in this particular case, like Mackey says, represents power. Okay, and that's why he's there. And then St. John, the other St. John is very studious and very intellectual, if you will. And I suspect he represents knowledge. And those two lines representing those two saints border our Masonic universe within the circle, okay, by power and knowledge. And it's within those that we can expand our universe. Just a thought.
There's some who say that the parallel lines represent the columns on the porch of the temple. So Jachin and Boaz.
A lot of interpretations.
And that goes along similar with how what we say those words mean goes along with what you're saying. Most
Yes.
worshipful.
Excellent.
When I was playing around with this, I saw a presentation from Worshipful Brother Hank Qualley a couple years ago, where he took a flip chart and big compasses, and he did some geometry on there. And so since then, I've been thinking about this symbol, and a couple weeks ago, I came to the realization that you can try a square with a string. You can set a point, use a string to draw a circle, stretch the string tight, and you have the diameter of the circle. And then by picking a point on the circumference and pulling the string between the points, you can form your 90-degree angle. So with a string that's so flexible, we can use it to set and try our squares.
I remember seeing that presentation from Hank also, and he was doing all kinds of geometric drawings using just a point and a string.
That's the beauty of geometry, and that's why I think Masons hold it in such high reverence, is that the power of just a string and a straight edge.
You can also use it to tie up your deputy.
Yeah. The first and noblest of the sciences.
Don't give us any ideas.
I don't know, Scott. You could use it to tie somebody else up there, looks like. Larry Foley. Yes. Maybe.
Go ahead, Larry.
There we go. So
There
are
we
you
go. We're
saying
waiting
that
on
the
you,
first,
Larry.
are you saying that the first of the noble sciences is to tie up your deputy?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Now that
Excellent.
I'm no longer the deputy, sure, that works for me.
Excellent.
Next week's lesson will be on how to tie a hangman's noose.
All right.
Looks like I'm gonna miss that one, guys.
I agree. So will I.
So, anybody else got anything? All righty then. With that, we will. If everybody got a glass, we will do our weekly toast to our absent brethren. To our absent brethren.
Absent brethren.
And I thank you all for joining tonight. And next week we will have Most Worshipful Brother Russ Shavornia from California, past Grand Master. Or no, I'm sorry. Next week will be Most Worshipful Brother Sam Roberts, past Grand Master of Washington, presenting on leadership and mentoring. Then the following week we will have Most Worshipful Brother Russ Shavornia from California, talking on civility in the time of pandemic. So don't miss it. Same link that we always use. And I will be looking for presentations to follow that. So if anybody has something, send me all right, Andre, you got another one? I will get in touch with you.
Sending it to you.
Excellent. All right. And with that,
Mentoring and coaching is so important in our lodges. And once we get back into business, this is something that we've not practiced now for months. So I would ask that you get in contact with some of your lodge brethren, let them know that this is going on, and invite them to join us. Because each and every one of us should be a coach and a mentor.
and if you're not getting enough Masonic Zoom meetings, reach out. District 13 does a weekly Zoom meeting. District 2, I believe, does a weekly Zoom meeting. You can probably reach out to just about any deputy or worshipful master, and you can find a meeting to attend if you choose.
How do we reach out to those people? How do we find that address?
My suggestion would be talk to your deputy, because he has all of the other deputies' contact information.
Okay,
Grant-
you heard him.
The Grand Secretary last night said he was going to plan a series of meetings too, weekly. So,
Yeah, he does his weekly stump the chump. I mean, fool the Grand Secretary.
right.
Yeah.
He's going to continue on with that.
That's
So,
what he calls it, legitimately.
Yeah, that's where I got it, was from him. Stump the chump. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.